Is the United States developing a sixth-generation stealth fighter jet? For years, whispers circulated through defense circles about a secret demonstrator that allegedly flew somewhere in the Nevada desert. But what exactly is this aircraft? March 2025 answered that question. Wings angled down like a hawk stooping through morning fog. President Trump stood in the Oval Office and told reporters Boeing had won the contract to build the F-47. That was it. No flight video or spec sheet, just a promise that America's first sixth-generation fighter was moving forward. 4 months earlier, China did the exact opposite. On December 26, 2024, Chengdu Aircraft Corporation flew a large, tailless Trije prototype over its test field in broad daylight. Photographers captured it from 3 angles. A twin-seat J-20S chase plane escorted it. By nightfall, high-resolution images were on every defense forum on the planet. No press release necessary. The message was clear. We're here. One side shows everything and says nothing. The other shows almost nothing and says everything. That is the sixth-generation air dominance race in a nutshell, and the gap between what you see and what you hear will decide who owns the Pacific in the next war. The next-generation air dominance program started in the mid-2000s when Pentagon planners looked at the F-22 and asked what comes after perfection. The answer was not another jet. Instead, they envisioned a family of platforms working together as one weapon. Fast forward to September 2020, and the first confirmation arrived. Acquisition Chief Will Roper stood at a defense conference and dropped a bombshell. A full-scale demonstrator had already flown in secret. Real airframe, real engines, real flight test data. The program was beyond PowerPoint presentations. Then 2024 hit. Budget pressure forced a formal review because cost per jet was climbing toward multiple hundreds of millions. Some estimates pushed past $300 million per airframe. Air Force leadership started wondering if they really needed an exquisite superfighter when drones were getting cheaper and smarter every month. The review stretched through late 2024. Eventually, March 2025 brought the decision. Boeing got the contract, and the F-47 designation honored the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt, the World War II fighter that hammered Luftwaffe formations over Europe. So what does this jet actually do? Public details stay locked behind classification walls. However, the design philosophy is clear. The pilot becomes a mission commander. Instead of just flying the aircraft, artificial intelligence handles sensor fusion, threat ranking, and engagement recommendations, while the human decides what to hit. In practice, the cockpit shifts from stick and rudder flying to battlefield command. Touchscreens replace analog instruments as data floods in from the jet's own radar. Satellites overhead, drones scouting forward positions, and Navy ships offshore. The AI sorts everything, ranks priorities, and presents options. Decision cycles compress from minutes to seconds. Not only that, the F-47 is built to command loyal wingmen. Collaborative combat aircraft fly formation and take orders in real time. The Air Force plans to field roughly 100 to 150 CCAs before 2030, and each one costs tens of millions instead of hundreds. They carry extra sensors, missiles, and electronic jammers. Think of them as expendable weapons platforms that keep the mission alive even after losses. As for propulsion, it gets new technology too. Adaptive cycle engines adjust performance on the fly, balancing thrust against range and thermal management. General Electric's XA-100 test program proved the concept works, though whether that exact engine powers the F-47 remains classified. Weapons fit stays modular. Long-range air-to-air missiles for beyond visual range kills, precision bombs for ground targets, and space reserved for hypersonic weapons down the line. But here's the twist. The jet functions as a command node rather than a solo gunfighter. It shares targeting with other F-47s, bombers, Navy destroyers, and ground units. A ship 800 miles away could fire the missile that the F-47's sensors queued up. Looking ahead, timeline points toward operational deployment in the early 2030s, with CCAs arriving first to give pilots time-mastering drone command before the manned jet reaches squadrons. Meanwhile, Chengdu Aircraft Corporation was working on something that would force American planners to rethink everything. The same company that built China's J-20 was leading a sixth-generation effort that nobody saw coming. December 26, 2024 brought the reveal. Images flooded defense forums showing a large tailless aircraft near Chengdu facilities. No official announcement, no press ceremony, just photos and video that analysts scrambled to decode. The design stood out immediately. 3 engines visible in early imagery, tailless configuration, diamond-shaped planform with no vertical stabilizers, flush surfaces everywhere. Western analysts started calling it the J-36, though China said nothing official. Yet the strategic message was unmistakable. Here's why it matters. Geography explains why China needs this jet. The distance from Chinese airbases to Guam exceeds 3,000 kilometers. To push back American carrier groups or control airspace around Taiwan requires fighters that fly far and carry heavy loads while surviving against advanced sensors. Reports suggest the design blends strike and air superiority roles into one heavyweight package that launches long-range missiles at enemy tankers, then pivots to dropping precision munitions on distant bases. China released no specifications, but the design suggests supercruise ability, meaning sustained supersonic flight without afterburner to save fuel and reduce infrared signature. What's more, the People's Liberation Army Air Force has been experimenting with drone teaming and AI-assisted tactics for years, so the J-36 likely plugs into that ecosystem as the command platform. Then, October 2025 brought more evidence. A second J-36 prototype appeared with visible modifications to air intakes, landing gear layout, and exhaust geometry. That iteration speed suggests China is moving aggressively through development cycles. Despite that, questions remain. Engines are the biggest unknown since China has struggled historically with reliable high-performance turbofans. If the J-36 depends on immature power plants, fielding could delay significantly. 6th-generation combat rewrites every rule because of this simple fact. The lone ace dogfighting at close range is finished. What replaces that image is networked team warfare, where the manned jet becomes the quarterback calling plays while drones run routes and electronic warfare creates space. Artificial intelligence enables this shift by sorting thousands of radar contacts, prioritizing threats, and recommending engagement sequences in milliseconds. A human pilot under combat stress can juggle maybe 4 or 5 tasks simultaneously, whereas an AI handles 50 tasks while maintaining spare processing capacity. As a result, data fusion transforms the battlefield entirely. The fighter no longer depends only on its own radar but pulls feeds from space-based infrared sensors, electronic support systems on friendly ships, and drones scouting ahead. Everything fuses into one composite picture where the pilot sees what matters instead of sifting through noise. Furthermore, electronic warfare moves from supporting role to frontline weapon. Jamming enemy radars, spoofing incoming missiles, and protecting friendly communications demands electrical power, thermal management, and cooling capacity. Adaptive cycle engines help by generating more output, while larger airframes carry bigger fuel loads and heavier equipment. At the same time, weapons evolve alongside platforms. Long-range air-to-air missiles extend kill zones beyond visual range, while hypersonic weapons compress time to target. Dramatically directed energy systems could disable incoming missiles or fry enemy electronics at light speed, though whether those systems mature in time for deployment remains uncertain. That said, survivability is not just about low observability anymore. It's about distribution across the formation. Lose 1 jet from a 10-jet force, and you lose 10% of capability, but lose 5 drones from a force of 10 jets and 50 drones, and the mission continues near full strength. The F-47 and J-36 chase similar objectives on paper, yet approaches differ significantly. The NGAD builds on proven integration experience from decades of fusing sensors and platforms together. The F-35's data-sharing network is the most recent example, and NGAD extends that foundation with a clear-funded drone program, providing numerical advantage before the manned jet even deploys. In contrast, the J-36 demonstrates execution speed. China moved from rumors to flying prototypes in under a decade, and the second prototype proves rapid iteration capability. What's more, strategic geography helps too, since Chinese air bases sit closer to Taiwan and the South China Sea than American forward bases, shortening range requirements considerably. Both fighters push stealth boundaries differently. NGAD's adaptive materials reportedly adjust to different radar frequencies and thermal signatures, whereas the J-36's smooth tailless configuration emphasizes radar absorption from multiple angles. Artificial intelligence is another shared priority. The US program confirmed AI-assisted decision-making and mission control capabilities, and China's jet likely follows similar paths where onboard systems process combat data instantly. Likewise, each platform commands unmanned partners as well. NGAD's drone wingmen are in active testing now, and China's drone teaming approach stays less public, but is widely expected to mirror the concept for coordinated formations. However, weapons philosophy shows different emphasis, though. The NGAD reserves space for next-generation arms, including hypersonic missiles and potential energy weapons, whereas the J-36 emphasizes long-range missile engagement and versatile payload options for both air and ground targets. Finally, both jets fight as nodes in connected networks linking satellites, ships, and ground forces for real-time targeting and surveillance data sharing. The US leads in this cloud warfare approach, but China's rapidly expanding data link systems are closing that gap. Air superiority decides who projects power and who plays defense in modern conflict. Here's what's at stake. If China can threaten American tankers, bases, and carrier groups across the Western Pacific while controlling maritime approaches, the calculation in any Taiwan scenario shifts dramatically. On the other hand, if the United States fields mixed forces of stealth jets and drones that survive opening salvos with resilient networks, it blunts quick Chinese moves and raises escalation costs substantially. As a result, the arms race plays out visibly now. China flies bold prototypes openly, while the US pauses to avoid buying wrong, expensive jets, then announces Boeing as contractor. Each move by one side pressures the other toward faster responses. Meanwhile, regional consequences concentrate in Indo-Pacific theaters, where new jets with extended range and sophisticated teaming change force structures around Taiwan, the South China Sea, Guam, and the Philippines' allies. Watch developments closely, because Japan, Australia, and South Korea must decide their roles. Compatible drone purchases, sensor integration into American networks, and hosting forward bases for F-47 deployments will reshape regional security architecture. That said, budget realities will shape final fleet sizes too. The Air Force balances Sentinel intercontinental ballistic missiles, B-21 bomber production, tanker replacement programs, and F-35 upgrades while standing up NGAD and CCAs simultaneously. In contrast, China spends across missiles, ships, and aviation without American-scale sustainment burdens for aging legacy equipment. Deployment for the F-47 targets the early 2030s. The demonstrator flew in 2020, the 2024 pause reset cost assumptions, and Boeing's 2025 selection moves the program forward into development. CCAs arrive first, giving the Air Force time to train pilots on commanding drone formations. By comparison, the J-36 timeline stays less certain. Prototypes in 2024 and 2025 suggest aggressive pacing, and the second prototype's modifications indicate systematic testing and design refinement. Nevertheless, engines, secure networks, and software maturity demand time, regardless of national urgency. Looking ahead, drones and artificial intelligence will carry increasing combat loads going forward. Unmanned systems absorb operational risk, probe forward first, draw enemy fire, and expand magazine depth affordably. The pilot stays in the cockpit commanding the formation for now, though that may shift by 2040. The skies over the Pacific in the coming decade will belong to whichever side integrates faster and fields operational numbers at scale. Low observability matters, speed counts, but connectivity is the actual weapon. Let me be clear. The F-47 brings proven integration expertise and a funded drone pipeline moving toward deployment. The J-36 brings prototype speed and focused investment, closing capability gaps rapidly. One side bets on tested playbooks refined across decades, while the other bets on velocity and concentrated national effort. Yet here's what both sides understand. Both jets represent the same fundamental shift. The opening move is the manned stealth fighter leading the formation. But here's the twist. The winning move is the networked team it commands executing coordinated strikes. Who fields that complete system first at operational scale controls deterrence, manages crises, and determines outcomes in any Pacific conflict.